Quilting Celebrations with Patrick Lose is brought to you by The Warm Company, manufacturers of the most loved battings and double-stick fusibles for creative people. Janome, what's next? Superior Threads, all your favorite threads. Havel Sewing, cut it close with Havel Sewing. And Patrick Lose Studios, designs and inspirations for your quilting celebrations.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Quilting Celebrations with Patrick Lose. I'm here with a couple of friends of mine. One you've met before in previous episodes, Patty Connor. And Patty's here to show us a new project that she's worked on from her new book. And also Miranda McGahey from Garner, right? Garner, North Carolina. And Miranda does, you see these beautiful wool things here on the table. And honestly, I was at Quilt Market recently and was walking down the aisle and was seriously stopped in my tracks by a rack of thread you might be able to see in the background. The colors of it are absolutely beautiful, and all of this is hand dyed at her studio in North Carolina. So Patty uses the Weeks Dye Works products in her project. So I brought the two of them together because I think they have a lot to share with you guys. And first of all, we just want to have a chat about, and a show and tell here about what it is that you do, Miranda, and what Patty's brought to show us made from your products. So how did you get started doing this?
I went to North Carolina State University and I graduated in 1992. Okay. And at first when I went there, I went to school design. I thought I wanted to be an architect. Yeah. So I took 1 year of architecture, and it took me a little while to figure out I was not very three-dimensional. Okay. So I took a swing studio, which means you take a studio outside your major, and I took a fiber art studio and loved it and never went back to architecture. Wow. And my favorite part when I was at school was color. So we were exposed to different processes, and one of the processes that we did was dyeing fabric at the time. So I dyed yarn, fabric, we did batik, we did shibori, we made paper, we did everything more historically. So we didn't get very technical, it was more of an art degree. But to make a long story short, once I graduated, I basically had it was joked that I had a degree in a hobby. So I had a fiber arts degree and didn't really know what I wanted to do. Luckily, I met some people that I worked for and I dyed fabric for them. And the good thing about that is it taught me how to reproduce what I do. So I started, because when I was in school, we would do it, and if I wanted it redder, I would just add more red. Or if I wanted it bluer or purpler, I would just change the color. So now I had to learn how to repeat and make it fairly consistent. So I was dyeing fabric for a company, pretty much hand dyeing it, and that was in Denver, Colorado. And I was doing things like this fabric.
Okay. Almost looks like a batik.
It's actually shibori, but it's got the same idea as batik. I would start to make a quilt, I would cut the fabric up. So I was doing this for fun. I was doing some for a company, but I was doing this for fun. My husband worked about 80 hours. He is an architect, so he was working on competitions and projects. So at night I would dye fabric, I would cut it up, I would piece it together, but then I really didn't enjoy the sewing part. So then I would put it away and I would dye more fabric, and so I never really finished but maybe 3 quilts. Wow. But I started a bunch. So I accumulated all this fabric. I started making note cards and going door to door to fancy specialty gift shops and trying to sell the note cards. I accidentally met a cross-stitch design team, a partnership called You and I and Friends, and they were in Denver. So when I showed them the fabric, they said, it's pretty, but we don't need it. Have you ever thought about doing thread? And I said, I can do that. So I went home, dyed some thread, worked on it, took it back to them. They said, oh, this is great, and they bought like $300 worth, $400 worth of thread, and they put it in a kit. And I thought it was great, it would be side money. We had just gotten married. I thought I can buy a new mattress or we can get a sofa. Like I still didn't think it would turn into anything.
It's your life now. Yeah,
so that was I met them in '94, so that was exactly 20 years ago. Wow. About this time of year. They had just gotten back from a big trade show. At the time it was the big cross-stitch show. They put it in their Christmas kit, and it was before the internet was very common, and so people started writing me letters because email wasn't really available. So I got letters and people wanted to get a catalog or get a price sheet or samples, and so it just sort of snowballed. And then in '95, that was in 1994. In 1995 I went to my first trade show with a little bowl of thread and gave away like 1,000
Wow.
samples, and
Wow.
the rest is history.
Let's see the rest of that project though, because it's beautiful.
So this is a stitched piece that I just had stitched.
Just
My
from the
aunt stitched
thread.
it a couple years ago.
That's
so,
beautiful.
But it was from this.
Very cool.
Give me a
Put
picture.
that over there. There you go. Well, let's go ahead and show some of these things, because I love what Patty does with them. Patty and I joke around a lot that we kind of work in the same vein. We have sort of the same design sensibilities, and some of this stuff does look very similar to what I do, and I think that's why I'm so drawn to it, that it's just very happy looking. And even the things that you do that are like this one, the deeper and darker colors, they're still whimsical and lively and have life to them, and make you feel happy. They're not a lot of the primitive things, and we talked about this a little before, that usually dyed wools especially are used in primitive projects and more country crafts, I guess, kind of things. And when you look at this, I don't think anything primitive about these colors. I mean, it's just amazing the amount of colors that you...
Now we have 82 colors.
Wow.
So, and they go a pretty good range of lights and darks, but a lot of muted and a lot more primitive colors.
Mm-hmm.
And we probably sell more of those colors.
Sure.
But the fact that in the beginning we were only doing darker, deeper colors, rich colors.
Mm-hmm.
But now as time's gone on, we've introduced pastels and bright colors, and we sell like a ton of bright red and the bright...
They're great. I mean, I love the bright colored wool things that I'm seeing in the marketplace, and the felted wools. They're amazing. This I want to show, though, because it intrigues me that you've taken the wools and go ahead and explain. You've got 4 different
we have 4 different textures.
Weaves, textures,
we
yeah.
call the solid. We call it solid, but
Sure.
since it's hand dyed, this one doesn't show as much where it's modeled. But
Mm-hmm.
we dye them all the same process, but they start out woven different patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So the same color can give you 4 different
right.
looks.
That's
you
what
could
I
use
love
them
about
together if you were doing if it was green and you were doing leaves, it would give you dimension to the leaves, or
So you have
pink petals on a flower.
Right. So you have 84, did you say, colors?
82 colors.
82 colors that 4 different types of wool weaves are dyed in. So, I mean, think of the possibilities for all these projects with all these colors and all these different wools. So, I mean, it's just amazing. And then the threads, they're beautiful. Just to be able to have that kind of a palette in thread.
So since we started in cross stitch, our biggest line is our embroidery floss, the 6 strand. So now there's almost 300 colors.
Oh, wow.
And again, there are more subtle colors that are appeal to one group of people, and then there are highly variegated multicolors.
I love the variegated. They're beautiful.
But we sell more of the tone-on-tone subtle colors because that's the most popular. And then, so there are 300 colors of this, 82 colors of the wool, and then we have other different, we have pearl cotton, pearl 3, pearl 8, pearl 5, and they all work
linen.
together, and linen fabric.
To
Oh,
cross
I
stitch
didn't even
on.
realize that.
We do have
Okay.
linen fabric.
Awesome.
So
Well, let's, so Patty, what's the name of your newest book that these projects
Wool Gathering.
Wool Gathering, okay. And all of the projects that we're showing today are from that book, or are some from?
They're all from that, but the thing I'm going to demonstrate is from a previous book called All Wool and Yard Wide.
Okay, and your website, it's Samsara Studio?
SamSaraDesignStudio.com.
Designstudio.com. So take a look there. I mean, it's so inspirational. This is a great little, I love this snowman. And the hanger is Ackfeld?
It's Ackfeld Manufacturing.
Yeah,
It's an
so
8-inch
Patty's like me.
snowflake.
We do a lot of things that work with the Ackfeld hangers, so
They're just
a
really nice,
perfect partnership, I mean.
and their things are
Let's see some more of the
wonderful.
pillows too. I just think they're great.
I did a whole series of hip-hop things, so there's critters
Okay.
hopping over
Awesome.
stuff. And like I do one a month and release them, but
great.
then people wanted them all in one book, so that's why now they're released all together. So I actually think these would look good on the sticks too, but I haven't done that yet.
That would be a cool idea. Awesome. And then she's brought a project for us to work on in this episode, and I love this one. I just think it's great.
It's very simple, and it's really easy to do. So we'll talk about how to do it and do step-by-steps, and it's so simple. And the thing I love about this wool, it's so forgiving. You don't have to be a perfect stitcher to do this. It just kind of...
It sinks into the wool
Yes.
kind of, and
Yeah. It's
or,
just really nice.
You know, your thicker stitches here sit on top of the wool without being sunk into it. But the thing that I was drawn to on this project is I thought these were little square buttons sewn all the way around it.
And they're pieces
My
of,
bad eyesight. But they're actually just little squares of wool. And you didn't even, did you fuse them or anything on the back?
No.
So they're just...
In my typical fashion, this was a deadline thing, and I didn't want to take the time to go around every square, so I just did an X on each one, and it actually looks better than it would have otherwise.
I think it's great. And now this is felted though, so it's not
It
like
is, so it's not going to
the
ravel.
wool isn't going to come unwoven.
No. So you don't have to do tiny little stitches. I do, but you don't have to.
So you can teach us how to do the blanket. Is that a blanket stitch there?
Actually, no.
No, it's not. Okay. Wow.
It's just straight stitches. So.
That's awesome. And the
And this
French knots,
stem
is that?
stitch, yeah. Well, I actually use colonial knots, which
Colonial
are a little
knots,
bit different, but same deal.
Well, I think that's going to be great. I'm excited to get working on the project. I hope you guys are too. So join us in the next segment and we'll start working on this project.
Quilting Celebrations with Patrick Lose is brought to you by The Warm Company, manufacturers of the most loved battings and double-stick fusibles for creative people. Janome, what's next? Superior Threads, all your favorite threads. Havel's Sewing, cut it close with Havel's Sewing. And Patrick Lose Studios, designs and inspirations for your quilting celebrations.